It started with a phone call I almost didn't answer. Midnight. I was lying on my worn-out couch, the kind you keep even when it's broken because you've had worse. I had no plans for a better tomorrow, just one more day survived. My son was the only thing I had. Quiet, observant, and far too mature for his age. He'd seen too much too young. I was once homeless. Not the kind people ignore on sidewalks. I was invisible. Nobody cared who I was or who I used to be. I used to be someone. But when you lose everything, even your name starts to vanish. Now, I worked nights fixing generators, stayed under the radar, and kept my past buried like the others wanted. But secrets don't stay buried. So when my phone buzzed and the screen showed the name of my son's school, at midnight, I knew something was wrong. Schools don't call after hours unless something's really wrong. My heart pounded as I answered. Hello. On the other end, a trembling voice. Sir, we need you to come to the school immediately. It's about your son. I didn't ask questions. I threw on a jacket, grabbed my keys, and drove. The roads were empty, the sky bruised with storm clouds, but I barely noticed. When I got there, the parking lot was half-lit, one security guard standing outside, nervously shifting his weight. A teacher I barely recognized, maybe she was new, ushered me into the front office. Her face was pale, her eyes haunted. She handed me a folded drawing. This was found in your son's locker. It was a crude sketch. A classroom. Kids sitting quietly. But above them, drawn in black crayon, was a large shadowy figure, its mouth wide open. Red ink was scribbled around its hands, not part of the crayon set. Beneath it, my son had written, "He comes when the quiet is loud." What does that mean? I asked. That's when the school counselor, normally calm, always with her soothing voice, said something that made my blood run cold. We heard a voice. From inside the walls. It repeated that sentence. Exactly. The power flickered. Now, I'm not one to fall for ghost stories. I've lived through real nightmares, sleeping in alleys, hunted by debt collectors, betrayed by the same friends who laughed at me when I fell. But this was different. I asked to see my son. They told me he was in the nurse's office. Not speaking. Eyes wide open. Like he saw something the rest of us couldn't. I stepped into the room, and he didn't even blink. He just pointed to the far corner. There's a door there, he whispered. But only he can open it. There was no door. The nurse shook her head. We've checked. Nothing's there. But I saw the look in my son's eyes. That same look I had years ago when I saw my life fall apart. That mix of fear and knowing, like he had seen something real, something no one else believed. As the night dragged on, more strange things happened. Security cameras showed static exactly at 3:13 a.m. One teacher claimed she saw someone standing behind a reflection in the window. Kids had been sleep-talking the same phrase. The quiet is loud. I stayed at the school. I wasn't leaving my son. But what nobody at the school knew was that I had seen this before. Years ago, when I was still living on the streets, a man I met spoke of a silent figure that followed children who knew too much. I thought he was crazy. But then he vanished. Just like that. Later, I found a box in an old shelter. Inside, sketches just like my son's. The same figure. The same phrase. And beneath it all, the map. One leading to this school. That's why I enrolled my son here. Not because it was close, but because I needed to know if it was real. If the stories were true. If this was the place where it began. I had spent years preparing for this moment. Everyone who mocked me, who pitied me, they didn't know I was watching, waiting. They didn't know the fortune I was guarding wasn't money. It was knowledge. A secret buried deep under foundations, hidden from the public, protected by symbols that only a few remembered. I walked down to the basement alone. It wasn't on any blueprints. But I had seen it in the box. The door was real, just not in the way others could see. And when I opened it, the air turned cold. My ears rang. The silence screamed. I won't tell you what I saw down there. Not now. But I will say this. The figure is real. And it doesn't come for the loud. It comes for the aware. As I came back up, I found my son smiling softly. "You saw him, didn't you?" he said. I nodded. He handed me another drawing. This time it was of us, together, standing in front of a door. But the shadow figure was gone. "He said you were ready," my son whispered. I looked out the window, where the sun was just beginning to rise. They all thought I was broken. A nobody. But they were wrong. Because sometimes, the ones you dismiss are the ones who hold the map. And sometimes, the scariest thing of all isn't the monster. It's the silence before it speaks. And tonight it finally spoke.